You ready?
Yep.
And what do I do to start this?
It's,
Here?
it's good. It's good.
Oh,
It's
okay.
going. It's going.
Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is There Has to Be Something More, and I'm your humble host, Scott Moore. Very excited to be with you today. Got something really special for you. We are sitting down in Parque Rubin Dario in the beautiful park in Matagalpa, Nicaragua, and I've got a special guest today.
Hola.
Eric from GenERIC Expats. If you're not watching Eric, you should be. Let's start off just by a little introduction. Tell them where they can find you and what your channel is all about.
Okay, sure. My channel is called GenERIC Expats, like he mentioned. It's a project that's very similar to what Scott's doing. I'm trying to show places that people could consider as a place to live in. As I'm a digital nomad myself, I'm actually not an expat, but I have been in the past. I've lived abroad for over 15 years of my life, and I'm from Minnesota. And I started this project with a motorcycle that I bought back in Minnesota, and I drove it down through Mexico, through all Latin America. And my project is spending minimum of 6 weeks in each country to give a very minimal surface kind of education or idea to my audience, to people watching, to people that are interested in finding out about what it's like to live in these countries. And I try and focus it on stuff that's relevant to people that are trying to do this. So, for example, what we talked about, we just had an interview. We just talked about these things, which would be cost of living, safety, weather, the I do some cultural excursions, food, as well as recently I've been doing interviews to get people that are actually living in each place I'm going to. They have great information. They actually have a lot more information than I can give, a lot better perspective. So that's basically what I've been doing. And my plan is to continue going south, spending much larger amounts of times in the bigger countries. So I spent 6 months in Mexico. I'll probably spend 3 months in Colombia, 3 months in Peru, maybe three in Argentina, probably 6 or 9 or even 12 months in Brazil because it's almost the size of the US. It's really, really big. So depending on the visa situation and how everything works, that is my project. And yeah, so we're sitting here now and we're just chatting about what what it is to what we need to be able to live in these places and have a good lifestyle, either if you're a digital nomad or maybe an expat or retiree or whatever your situation is.
Well, cool. We're really excited to have Eric here because, like you all, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you kind of know our story that Lydia's originally from here. We've been here in Matagalpa, Nicaragua since February. We are going to be going to Guatemala next. We'll be there for probably 6 months or a year. Then we're going to Mexico for a little while, then down into South America. And one of the cool things with Eric is, I mean, he's been all over the place, and he can shed a little bit of light on some of the places that we're going to, some of the places that you all may be thinking about. So thought I'd start just by kind of asking Eric a little bit about our next couple stops, which is Guatemala and Mexico. And then maybe he can shed some light on some places down in South America that we'll be heading to after that. Don't let me forget, because I'm going to ask Eric to give us like his top three, maybe, of like, okay, if I've got some friends and they're getting their 60 years old, 65 years old, they want to retire, they want to go, where would his best kept secrets be? So kind of go from there.
So let's start with the first thing you mentioned, which was the places you're going to go to next, right? I spent a week in where you're going, Quetzaltenango, Shela, and I loved it there. It's a little chilly for me. I like warmer places than you. You like cooler places than me. You're from a warmer place. I'm from a cooler place. Therefore, we kind of like the opposite extremes. But Quetzaltenango was very, very nice, very chill place. I mean, traffic in Guatemala in general, traffic is not great. One main reason why I'm doing my trip on a motorcycle is because Latin America on in a regular car for me is kind of miserable. Specifically in Guatemala, the traffic there is bizarre. Guatemala City is the worst traffic I've ever seen in my life. And I've lived in Asia. I lived in Vietnam, where like literally, like it's just like bumper to bumper, billions of little bikes. But the thing is, when they're motorbikes, it's easier to get around. Guatemala has tons of cars and trucks, and they're really big and they're really narrow streets. So there is a, there's a a definite struggle when it comes to Guatemala for that part, and I drive every day everywhere I go, so that's something that's important to me. For expats or for foreigners that aren't thinking about the vehicle situation, it's probably not a big deal. Maybe when you're trying to plan excursions or trying to go on a trip, you have to think about that. Okay, well, it's going to be a couple extra hours if I go to, you know, Guatemala City to Antigua. Has some of the worst traffic in all of Central America. That one little road that can take hours. A 20-30 minute drive can take hours and hours and hours, 3 hours sometimes. And so I've been caught in it. Other friends of mine have been caught in it on their motorcycle, but in a motorcycle you can drive around it. So, anyways, Quetzaltenango has good food. It's super cheap, much lower cost than Antigua, Guatemala City. It has good quality food, and yeah, I had a good time. I spent very little time there because I was just making my way over to the Antigua area, that zone. Um, Also, you said you're going to Chiapas, right? And I haven't actually lived there. I spent a week there on my first motorcycle trip through Mexico. I absolutely love Mexico. I've spent more than 2 years in Mexico. 6 months of the 2 years were when I started my project. So a year and a half of it was just me messing around, driving around and having fun. And I usually was working online. I've been a digital nomad for almost 6 years now. So Mexico, for me, I think is a very safe place. I mean, it has bad reputation. Some places are a bit more complicated. For example, the southern part of Mexico, there are some news stories coming out that maybe things aren't as safe in that area. So I haven't been back since 2017. I wouldn't know what to say, but I had a great time there, and the weather, like you said, you're looking for cool places. That's a good place to go with what you're looking for. After that, where are you going to again?
Well, and I would just say also, so Lydia and I are definitely looking for the cool weather places, but there's a lot of folks that watch the channel that may not be. So they may be looking for, if like in your top 3 or 4, they might be looking for that beach spot with the warmer weather.
Well, let's talk a bit more about the places you're going to, and then I can give my top suggestions. How about that?
Okay,
So what are the other places?
next one is Shayla or Quetzaltenango.
Yeah.
After that, we're San Cristobal de las Casas in Mexico. We may go. We can't figure out. Do we go there because we think we're going to really like it? So do we go there for 6 months, or do we do a month or two there and then go to Puebla and Querétaro and some of the other places? But
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something to think about. Transportation in Mexico is quite easy. It's easy to drive in Mexico, much easier than Guatemala. And they have the toll roads, which you can go really fast from one place to another, and you just pay the toll, and literally, sky's the limit, really. So I lived in Querétaro for a month back before I started my channel. Really good for what you're looking for. Quite chilly. I was there in December. I was really cold. I was so cold. It's really high, 2,000 meters or something, 2,200, I can't remember. But I wasn't really looking for that. I was living in Monterrey at the time. Monterrey is only 400 meters, and I'm more of a warmer type of climate guy. Yeah, Puebla also. I love Puebla. Great food, high altitude. So if you're looking for cold nights, it's great for that. But the days are quite chilly, and especially at this time of year, the winter months in the northern hemisphere. When you're going down to Colombia, you said Manizales. I think that's a good spot for you as well. So yeah, I think you're on the right path. Arequipa is where I lived as well. I think that's a great spot for you as well. So I think a lot of those things are good options for you. Now, you mentioned giving suggestions overall, right? Overall suggestions, and did you say specifically for what age group?
well, I would say for people 60s, somewhere around there, like
Okay.
they're getting close, they're thinking about making the leap, but it's like, where do I go?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if
yeah.
you were gonna, if these are like your favorite people on earth, this almost retired couple,
Yeah.
where are the top 3 or 4 places? It doesn't have. Maybe we do one for cool weather and one for any kind of weather.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. So I would say it really depends. There's two types of people, and it depends on the type of person that you are. There is a certain type of person that really likes being around other foreigners, especially people from the country you're from. So if you're an American, USA, you want to be around other Americans with a similar mentality or just a similar background. Maybe that's what you're looking for. Having a little slice of home in your new place. That's okay. Some people want that. Some people don't want to be anywhere near other foreigners. I mean, you're not near any foreigners right now. I'm not sure. Is that your style?
Yeah, that's our style.
So there's two different types of people. So I guess I can give one example from each. if you want a hot place that's surrounded by other people from the US or people that you can chat with, meeting expats, expat hangouts, having new friends and all this, I would say Mazatlan is a great place in Mexico. Puerto Vallarta, that's where I did some of my first videos that actually did quite well on my channel. They performed well. People really were interested in that information, and they are really good for people that want to go somewhere and have that back support, that support of the people that are from the same area that can really hang out with you and enjoy this new experience. Maybe for people that are coming abroad for the first or one of the first times. So Mazatlan's a good spot for that. And then if you're looking for the hot place, so if you're looking for a colder place, maybe Cuenca in Ecuador. I mean, I didn't spend that much time there. I was only there for a week, but from what I remember, there was a pretty huge expat community of that age range, and that seems like another nice spot that's really good cost of living, good food, and a lot of people to interact with that are in that age group that can give you that support from that slice of home that you're looking for. If you're looking at not being around the people that you grew up with and people from your country in a hot place, I mean, there's untold amounts of places, like go anywhere, any small town or any big town. For example, I was in Acapulco for my channel. Acapulco for me was a great spot. I loved it, but both foreigners, anyone outside of Mexico, oh, super dangerous. Anyone inside of Mexico, oh, super dangerous. I loved it. No, like Mexicans that I met that were from all around Mexico that went there on vacation, they're like, oh my God, a foreigner here? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a video series making content about living in these places. I chose Acapulco. Oh my God, amazing. So people, even in Mexico, were surprised I was there. If you wanted to be not near any foreigners and even locals that are scared of it, Acapulco's a spot. I mean, but
beautiful place.
it's super beautiful. Have you been there before?
No, I've just seen all the videos.
Oh, so good. You saw my videos?
I've seen all I think of when I think of Acapulco are the cliff divers.
Cliff diver. I made a cliff diver video. Watch that if you want. It's done terribly so far, but I think it's really good. So, anyways, and that's the Mexico version. I mean, there's a version of that city you can find in pretty much every country. I'd have to think about that, but that's the city that comes to mind right now. And if you want to be in the mountains, a great spot in the mountains where there aren't that many people that are from, like, for example, the U.S. and Canadian audience. If you want not to be surrounded by them, come to think of it, I mean, well, Matagalpa here is a good spot. I mean, up in the mountains in Mexico, I have to really put my brain on it. I mean, Querétaro doesn't have a huge population from the U.S. as much as the other places. I'm really trying to figure out what other places in other countries that I went to. It's not really ringing a bell right now. Maybe actually, I was just in Honduras, and there are some nice places in Honduras. I mean, even Tegucigalpa, I didn't think it was a terrible spot. I think it was quite a beautiful spot, to be honest. It's right in the mountains. It's high up. It's 1,500 meters. It's in the Goldilocks zone. Great weather. No foreigners there. Like, everyone's too afraid of it. I thought it was super safe. I mean, I was actually outside the city. I was in a really awesome loft in a place called El Chimbo, which you should check out. There's an Airbnb that I stayed at. I'm making a video for her now. Anyways, I think that's a good undiscovered location. And if you're trying to avoid the gringo crowd or the foreign expat crowd, you have to do some research, because it's just there's not that much information online about undiscovered places. You kind of have to do it yourself, or find maybe less popular people that talk about it, like me, I guess. So that would be my main ideas that come to mind right now.
It's helpful to have an expat community around you, especially if your Spanish isn't that great. You can get some good advice about where to do things, how to do things. Um, the one comment that I get every once in a while negatively about being around a big group of expats is you're kind of like the one that I hear over and over again. You're right back in the U.S. talking about politics again. So like half the people you might love and half you don't love.
Sure.
And I think a lot of it also depends on the size of the city that you're kind of looking for. Do you like the small towns, the big cities? Buenos Aires, we're looking at, I think, 15 million. Um, before I want you to make sure that you tell them everywhere that they can find you. But can you touch just a little bit more on Arequipa?
Arequipa.
Yeah,
Okay,
because, like, I watched your Arequipa video, and part of it was, and I thought this was interesting because I never thought of that. Like you talk about Cuenca and Manizales, kind of some of the cons you get are, oh, it rains a lot. But then you look at Arequipa and it's like, oh, it's beautiful and sunny. The air's dry. So I remember you talking about
Okay,
like your
so
skin.
I recently made a video. I stayed in Arequipa for some business related stuff. I started a software company for a product that is for the mining industry. Arequipa is a big mining city, and it's surrounded by tons of areas that have mining. And I have a business partner that I'm working with that's from Arequipa, and I've lived there already before. And sorry, and so Arequipa has this type of climate that is very dry, and it can kind of like dry out your sinuses. And to be honest, like I did was a little bit uncomfortable with my sinuses a little bit a couple times, but I mean that's just another part of the pros and cons, and that's the video I made on Arequipa. I made a pros and cons, 5 pros 5 cons about living there, and I guess that's the one you watched, was it?
Yeah.
And I absolutely love Arequipa. I mean, Arequipa is on my list as well, big time. I love it there, very safe, foods are fantastic, cost of living, beautiful, surrounded by really cool places to visit. And yeah, so that one con wasn't a super important con. I mean, it's part of having that type of non-rainy climate. It's what I call, and some geographers call, the tropical desert. Yeah, so it's the desert. It's super dry, but it's in the tropics. So it has the type of climate that is very stable throughout the year, as the tropics are, but it doesn't have the heavy rainfall that you would find in Costa Rica, most of that country, and that's what brings the green tropical look and feel and higher humidity is in the more rainy areas. So this is more of a desert tropical area, and I think if you're trying to avoid super rainy places, that's a great spot for that. I think Cuenca is quite a bit rainier from what I remember. I mean, I didn't stay that long, so I don't remember. A lot of Colombia is rainy, so especially in like the Manizales, Medellin area, Bogota. I mean, those mountainous areas, they have a lot of rainfall. It's very rainy, tropical. But there are areas that are desert tropical as well in Colombia, where I actually stayed myself near Santa Marta. That's the desert tropical area going towards Venezuela. If you go to the Guajira, that area, I mean, that's going to be a good spot if you want to escape the gringo crowd because I was in a fishing village for a month when I was there. I loved it. It used to be a very big tourist town. It's called I can't remember the name. So it's right next to Santa Marta, and it stopped being a tourist location after some random controversy. And so if you randomly stop in some of these places, I mean, you can find some gems. Like that was a gem. I found some great food, fishing village, super calm, like cool culture. But it depends. Like, are you trying to be in a small fishing village, or do you want to be in a big city with like more conveniences, closer to a capital where you can take flights? You know, all these things need to be considered. And yeah, so Arequipa, it's kind of a big city. I mean, it's one of the biggest, one of the most important in Peru. There are flights to Lima, stupid cheap. My flight, I think I talked about in the video, was $30 to go. Lima is an hour and a half flight to $30, $29, and it did include luggage. But you know, if you're just doing trips or whatever within the country or whatever, it's crazy cheap. And so that's something to keep in mind if you're like, oh, I want to do some trips while I'm living in these places. Peru has this, you know, big-ish city, not the capital, very safe. Lima is not as safe, and yeah, you can do a lot of trips just going to Lima and then flying around the country from Lima, or there are trips like from Arequipa to certain places. Yeah. And what was the other question you had?
Well, I think that was about it. Just wanted you to kind of touch on Arequipa for us a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and where they can contact me, or
Absolutely, all your
okay,
contact information.
so basically, I mostly am pumping out content on my channel again, GenERIC Expats. I have a website. It's called GenERIC's World, and on this website, I offer tours in the places that I'm going to be living in and doing this content and this work on. So I'm kind of changing my focus. Before I was offering like individual tours. Now I'm going to focus on 3 or 4 day all-inclusive tours for anyone that's interested and discovering a little piece of the countries that I'm going to be going to. I have the exact time that I'm going to be there. So if you're thinking, oh, I want to do a super crazy trip with this crazy YouTuber, I mean, that's something I'm offering, a 4 day full all inclusive trip to check out some of the best places in the country, give you all of the knowledge I have and tips I can give you if you're interested in finding out that information. And I'm going to be putting that on the website, genericsworld.net. I also offer classes. I teach English to non-English speakers, mostly from Asia, but I also teach basic and intermediate Spanish and Portuguese. So if you're trying to go to these other countries that speak Spanish and Portuguese, I can give you a good base for your education and starting your your skills to be prepared for that. Yeah, so besides that, that's pretty much the main things I'm doing besides my software company. But that software company, I mean, if anyone's looking at finding some partners to work with, doing a software type of social media style software for the mining industry, and you're looking at doing some maybe some investment or working along with a Peruvian and American joint partnership, I mean, we're definitely trying to expand that as well. We're just going very slowly at the time.
Cool. Well, so we kind of touched a little bit today again, and we've covered this a little bit before, but there's no solutions, there's no perfect place, there's only trade-offs, and you try to get the best trade-offs you can. So when you're going through and you're trying to kind of think about where could I retire, it's kind of like going through and saying, what kind of weather do I want? What kind of elevation am I looking for? Am I looking for a small city, a big city, dry air that where my skin's cracking or where it rains a little bit. Uh, so whatever it is that you're looking for, you kind of have to figure out all those different things, all of those trade-offs, and that's kind of part of the process that we're all going to kind of go through for anybody that's looking to make a jump like this. But I want to thank you all so much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Eric, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Great meeting you. Thank you so much for being on the channel. And everybody remember, if you're bored, you're sitting in your cubicle at work, and you're trying to figure out how to retire early, remember, there has to be something more.
Awesome. There has to be something more. That's so good.